Hi folks, I'm here again to do another video here on a sexual topic. The ones on the sex are by far the most popular of my talks that I've done so far. I figure once people start doing the videos, start watching the other videos on my views on film, they will like it too. And again, I'll preface this to begin with. If you like my views on this, understand this is one of my least knowledgeable topics. So if you go to the film ones, you will really enjoy it. I promise you. There's a lot of good stuff in there too, knowledge and things like that. I do have a master's at this point in English, so just to let you know, I do know a lot about film. I've been watching it for many years. I've analyzed it for many, many years too. So my views on film are really, really good. That being said, these are the most interesting to most people, so I will continue doing these. The topic today is anime. As I preface everything, I try to get some research beforehand before doing these because it's not the topic I'm most knowledgeable of. If you have any questions, you can privately message me or whatever, and I will try to find that information out at the school that I went to, which is Indiana University, through the Kinsey Institute, to see if they have any research on anime, which I'm sure they do. But I want to give you a story before I start the anime topic to understand my like for cartoon sexuality. Okay, because I think again, as I've said before, many times with sexual topics, the more that you open them up, the less taboo it gets, and the better people can make decisions based on that. So they're not hurting someone or doing something illegal or whatever it may be. So I think that opening up the topics can only do good. So I'm going to give a brief story about how I got interested in not anime per se, but like visual cartoon sexuality. When I first started talking to some professors at the Kinsey Institute, I was also reading Frank Miller's Sin City, the actual graphic novel at that time, and I was blown away by the way that the females looked in that particular not cartoon, comic. So, and I talked to the Kinsey professor that I was most friends with, but he was not very knowledgeable about that topic. His topic dealt more with gayness biologically, how statistically people do grow up biologically gay, and how they're not conditioned by society to be that way. So that was more his topic. So he wasn't very knowledgeable about it, and he was a very blunt British man, so he told me he didn't give a piss about the topic. I believe that was his actual term. So I didn't bring it up again. But the reason I bring in anime and just cartoon sexuality is I think they're kind of correlated in the sense that both of them are appealing. Now, I do know some statistics on this myself, which is that the reason people are quote unquote turned on by cartoons is because that cartoons exist in proportions that are not natural to the sex that you're interested in. And on top of that, they're still visually appealing enough that you can believe that it might be. In fact, I believe there was a experiment that was done quite a while back where they showed the curves of a woman and they kept bringing it in and in more until it was completely unrealistic, and men still found it visually appealing even though biologically it cannot happen. So that's what makes those types of cartoons interesting and visually appealing to look at, is because we still can think that someone can exist like that, even though by nature it is not possible. But it still stimulates the mind, because I'm sure they've done that experiment now with females showing male things that are not possible, and they still liked it too. So, but you have to keep in mind that usually speaking, men are visual creatures and women are a different form. They go more by words, spoken things, and talked about things, and writing and things like that. That's why typically women's pornography is like Harlequin novels, and men's pornography is something visual. It's like actual film pornography. Um, but anime falls into that. And anime can kind of be both, to be honest with you, which is probably why it appeals to both men and women. Because I know, in my personal experience, I know a lot of women that do like certain forms of anime. Um, and I believe it's because of the comic strip element, the kind of day to day living that kind of appeals to women, and the visual appealingness of looking at something like that. So that being said, you have a couple of elements that go into that. So, and I'm not going to get into like quote unquote the more salacious aspects of anime, like what people call like tentacle porn and things like that, because I do believe that's a very, very small percentage of people that actually like that. And I think that it has just been blown way out of proportion. Like most things, when it comes to comic book people, they tend to dwell on the more weirder aspects as if to fit an agenda that these people are weird, which they are not. They are just people that enjoy certain things, just like everybody else. It would be like if I made fun of someone for watching 7 seconds or 6 seconds, whatever the name of that movie was, about that bull rider. Oh, all you ever watch is that movie. It's like, I mean, that's pigeonholing someone into something that's unrealistic. I'm sure they like all kinds of film. But yeah, it may be their favorite, blah, 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 but, that doesn't equate their entire knowledge of life. Just like maybe some people prefer other forms of anime porn, but then when it comes to tentacle porn, they may view it sometimes and may not view it at all. But it may be a small percentage of them. So that is what I think about that particular topic. But anime in general is just showing visually appealing characters that are involved in sexual situations. And that's what appeals to some people. I mean, even if you look at what's going on today with computer simulations in pornography, where you can have, like, quote unquote, real girls talking to you and blah, 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 that's another thing. That's like gaming, except sexually. And we had that back in my day. It was called Leisure Suit Larry, where the whole idea of the thing was to get laid at the end of it. And you can definitely tell by today's standards that's pretty mild. But that's okay, because it just means that people are progressing forward in society. But what I don't feel is being progressed forward is the education. I believe the entertainment is moving along, but the education is not. And you can't have entertainment without education. You can't have education without entertainment. Those two walk hand in hand. And so, because you can't just give someone, a caramelized apple all the time. They can't just eat that, but they can't also eat vegetables all day either. You have to have a balance of both. But, again, with anime, you're talking about a sort of reality that someone wants to live in. As with most stories, they want to live in that particular reality. It just appeals to them. Whether it be being a high school student in Japan or whatever it may be. Like, that just appeals to them. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You have a chance in film to live vicariously through people. So that gives you a great kind of way of doing it. And again, as long as it's not something that's illegal, like showing underage people or something like that, it's totally fine. It's just that when you promote ideas that are illegal, that's where the problem lies. Because that should not be, because you can really hurt someone doing that. And again, I want to stress that, and I stress that with all my talks on sex, because you can't do something that is going to hurt someone. It just is not possible, because that is not fair to them, and you should be put in jail for that. The Kinsey Institute does not have a lot on their website about anime. I am sure it's a relatively new topic to their discussions down there, so I will have to talk to them a little bit more about it, because I may bridge this out one more time, because I do feel like this is a topic that really needs to be talked about, because it's very topical to what's going on in today's sexual theater. So I'll see if I can find something more and bring a little bit more knowledge, statistics to the table about how many people watch it and so on and so forth. Blah, blah, blah. But again, as I said before, with anime, you're living vicariously through someone. Sometimes it's like they're demon hunters, all kinds of stuff. This all appeals to people who just like good stories. Just like when Dungeons and Dragons is played, there's usually someone that's a succubus because they've always wanted to be. It's living vicariously through characters because that's what they enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with that because they're living vicariously through it and they're not actually sucking someone's soul out and destroying them. So that's a good thing. Thumbs up. But with anime, again, you're getting a visual story element in a cartoon format, which is appealing, as I said before, because of the fact that you can make something look unrealistic yet still appealing. And that's where the strength of this lies. So if you do like it, then there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I want to say, because your eyes are conditioned to like something like that. Just like we have a lot of arguments today about photoshopping women in magazines and things like that. Okay? And this is kind of in the same lines with it, because what they say is that it's making women look unrealistic. Yes, it is. But the problem is that it's visually appealing. So people will buy more copies of that if they do. And we have many, many companies now that are taking the time to show women that actually look like regular women, and they're finding that their sales are not that good. Why? Because people see regular women all the time. They don't want to see them in magazines, right? We go to magazines just like we go to eating caramel corn because it's sweet and it's good. And yeah, you can't do it all the time, but if you do it in a fairly balanced way, it's not that bad. And that's just the way that those things work. I mean, again, you can try to save the world, but what you'll find is that most people don't want the world to be saved. So that's why you give education, which is to say, hey, what you view is there's a reason that you view it that way. Now, here's what you can do to elaborate on that, right? And I think that that's a perfectly fine thing to say. And, think about how many women cartoons have been sexualized throughout history, whether it be Betty Boop, Jessica Rabbit, I don't know. There's countless others, but those are kind of like the two major ones. So it's been going for a long, long time. So this is not something that's new. It's just that with modern technology, stories are easier to tell in a cartoon format, so you will see them. And they're cheaper, I think, in many ways than getting a lot of people in to shoot and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably why they're more popular now. Plus, a lot of people go into a subculture now of what are called comic book people. I think in many ways I would fall into that, even though I'm not necessarily a comic book person by trade. I just am kind of in the sense that I like comic book stories. I just do. So, you're getting into that same kind of vein of people that like Dungeons and Dragons and all that kind of stuff. Kind of the more cerebral people of the world, so to speak, that enjoy that kind of stuff. And I think that's perfectly fine. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to bring up on the topic now before I get any some research on the actual topic. I don't think there is, because I think I've talked about the visual aspect of it and the storytelling as far as this, and I just want to make sure that I get more statistics next time. So again, as I've always said with these, the reason I bring them up is to encourage discussion and to encourage people to have an open dialogue about this. I think it's super important because I think it makes this topic less taboo and less in the shadows and less shameful. And I think that that's perfectly fine to do. Because again, it's not illegal and it's not hurting anyone, so it should be. Okay? And that's all I have to say on that topic. And so till then, Auf Wiedersehen.